House of the Dragon was the best show ever, for 5 episodes. Is an endearing little phrase that I've been saying ever since the first season of House of the Dragon finished up back in 2022, in various streams and unscripted videos and discussions alike. It became a bit of a meme saying for me. I would then chalk that up, rather nationalistically, to the great Australian state. You see, the first 5 episodes were as good as they were, and severely outclassed the harrowing last 5 episodes because of the inclusion of, and then the exclusion of, Australia's very own Millie Alcock, of course. Her presence, the rebellious sass she gave Rhaenyra, matched with the playfulness, the attitude, that's what she brought to the role. She Australianized Rhaenyra. No meekness found here, fuck up that boar, and fuck that pretty boy, and break his heart too. She was a dynamic character, who wanted things and sought to get them, with a hard-headedness and an inelegance that clashed with the world she found herself in. It was frankly fun to watch. But alas, the good times don't last, and the time skip hits. And poor Emma Darcy shows up, and guess what? She's British. Ew. Now, we all fell in love with Emma Darcy because of HBO's seemingly relentless viral marketing campaign of having her and Olivia Cooke being funny in interviews. She's got personality, but on the show, in her 5 episodes, she was missing something. The show had her constantly between getting beaten down and crying, and mothering or being pregnant. She had trouble standing up for herself, and seemed like she was always begging those around her to do stuff for her. It was, frankly, kinda lame. There was no cool factor, no hard-headedness. Season 2 episode 1 was more of the same for Rhaenyra. She's out looking for her dead son, then she's crying about her dead son, then she's reuniting and crying with her alive son, and then she's having a funeral for her dead son, and it's a big old bag of boring. But then, episode 2 hits, and she's straight murdering Daemon Targaryen. And ladies and gentlemen, and particularly those in between, we are so very back. Rhaenyra's first scene of the episode is her being told by her council about blood and cheese. Her council have their suspicions that she, or at the very least a Daemon, was behind the decapitation of Prince Jaehaerys. Rhaenyra denies this, Rhaenys gives a knowing look to Daemon, and then Rhaenyra, after a monologue, looks to Daemon for reassurance in their innocence, before realizing this motherfucker absolutely did it. He's smirking, for God's sake. Then all of a sudden we are alone in a room with the two of them, and this is where it happens. There's almost a comedic timing to the change on Rhaenyra's face and the cut to them alone. That's only heightened by the dramatic irony of us, the audience, knowing that he is at least partially, if not totally, guilty. Rhaenyra, unrelenting in what she presumed to be true here, presses Daemon bluntly.
Did you send assassins to murder children in their beds?
Daemon responds with a direct obfuscation.
I sent the Queen's vengeance for her son.
This is basically the formula for the whole scene. Rhaenyra asking a direct, pressing question or accusing Daemon of something, and him trying to answer, or rather trying to avoid answering indirectly, and our strong-willed independent queen not buying any of it. And it is fantastic.
What did you tell this vengeance? What did you say to him? Daemon, that a boy lies dead and I am accused of killing it.
She's direct again, underlining the problem this stupid, impulsive act has caused. Daemon tries to privet again, invoking Mysaria for some of the blame.
Mysaria provided me with names and a subterfuge. I was clear in my instructions. Aemond, the brother of Aegon the Usurper. I cannot be responsible.
She catches him immediately trying to shift responsibility and repeats it at him mockingly.
Cannot be responsible.
She continues indignantly and cuts right to the ambiguity of his scene in the previous episode, and knowing her husband and uncle appropriately, asks,
If Aemond was not to be found, what were your instructions then?
Daemon puts his head in his hands and rubs his face, trying to play all this off as not a big deal, as an act to try and avoid being blamed or confronting anything he did wrong here, ending in him saying,
They did not concern in any way that of a little child.
You said
Rhaenyra then guesses what he almost certainly said to a very specific Hightower-hating former colleague of his.
You said that it was your aim to spill Hightower blood, and if not Aemond, than anyone would do.
The slight mock in Emma Darcy's performance in the "if not Aemond, anyone will do" part of the line is incredible. Daemon tries to immediately deny with a no, but by the time he finishes his denial, Rhaenyra has already responded by ignoring it and reiterating his fuck-up.
You have wounded me, weakened my claim to the throne, my ability to raise an army, my standing among my own council.
Daemon tries to ignore all these downstream fuck-ups by reiterating,
I said no.
and again, nearly immediately as he's done, Rhaenyra hits him with a blunt and unflinching,
I don't believe you.
and walks away in annoyance. Rhaenyra then comes to a calm, basically marriage-undermining realization and says,
So we come to it at long last. Cannot trust you, Daemon. I've never trusted you wholly, much though I wished to, willed myself to. But now I have seen that your heart belongs only to you. And when I was a child, I took this as a challenge, but I'm older now. I have challenges enough.
Her reflecting and the way she reflects in this monologue really bridges the gap between the Millie Alcock and Emma Darcy portrayals of Rhaenyra, because that is very clearly how younger Rhaenyra viewed Daemon, the uncle she sought to win over. This all basically reducing Daemon to a man-child that women his own age would never put up with. He's the 20-something hanging out with the high schooler. And that's when you realize that's kind of exactly who he is. Rhaenyra was the high schooler he tried to impress with gifts and the fact that he had a license, while his wife, a woman of his own age, rejected him wholly, likely seeing through his childish and impetuous ways. Oh, and here's the other girl he married with his similar-aged brother. Pretty cool. Daemon tries to retort again with an unspecific general statement that doesn't address anything she's just said.
I have served you faithfully.
And Rhaenyra does not take her foot off the gas.
Have you? Or have you used me as a tool with which to grasp at your stolen inheritance?
To which Daemon gets violent, knocking 1 and 2 off the table and rushing over to grab her by the throat as he's done before. Old Daemon also has a history of domestic violence and spouse murder. He's a winner. This time he hesitates before grabbing her throat and instead grabs her face. Rhaenyra does not back down. Daemon tries to reiterate his previous actions to demonstrate his loyalty.
When Sir Eric brought you the crown, did I myself not place it upon your brow?
Rhaenyra does not deny the reality of what happened, but cuts through his obfuscation again with,
Yes, but before that, you sought to lead a council of war while I laboured alone in my bedchamber. And afterward, when I thought it meet to consider the terms
folly,
our
a
hopes
folly.
were before us.
Daemon cuts her off, saying folly, and turns his back to walk away, only to continue.
Folly!
Before us.
To give up my brother's throne to the traitorous lies about
But this time Rhaenyra interrupts loudly, with her point this whole time.
lies about her high
My
power.
throne, Daemon! Mine!
And again, the delivery here is impeccable. It's almost desperate and vulnerable, not to seem weak, but to accurately cut through and show him his failing here. That he didn't even consider for a second that it was her throne, and only thought of his brother. She continues with an accusation.
I think you used my words as an excuse to take your own revenge. To indulge the darkness you keep sheathed within you like a blade.
You think me some kind of monster?
Daemon tries to abstract.
Oh, I don't know what to think of you. I don't know what you are, or who it is you serve.
Rhaenyra says before Daemon's soy, frustrated voice starts to come out, as he stammers to say,
Am I not on my way even now to Harrenhal to raise an army in your name, Rhaenyra? Yours!
Rhaenyra turns away from him, perhaps to cry, but then turns back calm, and asks the underlying question very bluntly.
Do you accept me as your queen and ruler?
Now, Daemon is obviously never going to directly answer that question. He can't say no, but to say yes is far too submissive. So he just looks forward, and then Rhaenyra asks the more selfish part of the question.
Or do you cling even now to what you think you lost?
She almost gives him an out there because he jumps at the framing of the second part, completely avoiding the first question.
What I think I lost.
But Rhaenyra was ready to double down.
You did not lose it, you gave it away. Because you thought ever and only of your own glory, and not of my father in his grief.
Your father
who
was a
needed
coward
you.
Daemon goes for the cutoff again, saying,
Your father
Who
was a
needed
coward
you?
who knew I was the stronger son, that I was the leader of men, and he was afraid to be seen in my shadow.
Is that what you understand of your own brother?
the Rhaenyra asks back.
Oh, you know him better than I do. Who was raised at his side?
Daemon asks mockingly.
Do you believe he made you heir because of your great wisdom, because of your virtue?
And this is where I think this scene takes it to a whole nother level of quality. Because what we are doing here is harkening back to the very first conflict of the show, a whole season ago, when it seemed like the sides of this eventual conflict were going to be Team Daemon and Team Rhaenyra. It's the payoff argument to all the tension between the two of them that went unaddressed when they decided to get married and unify against the Greens. It's the boiling over tension of Daemon being resentful that in his eyes Rhaenyra was only made heir to punish him, and then Daemon hits Rhaenyra below the belt, ostensibly calling her a slut by questioning her virtue, and by proxy the fatherhood of her eldest children. Perhaps highlighting his jealousy that he was not her first husband, nor her first lover, which he once aspired to be, which also he only fumbled because he couldn't get his dick up. It also echoes the feminism that is at the heart of the show, and the double standard that's applied to women regarding virtue and leadership that may be Rhaenyra's biggest obstacle in this entire war.
How dare you?
Rhaenyra says, as she turns away. Daemon proceeds.
Dare you?
Or did he merely use you as a tool to put me in my place because he was afraid of me? Because he knew your legacy, unlike mine, would never outshine his own.
But Rhaenyra gathers herself and cuts him off again with maybe her most powerful counter.
His
He
own.
was not afraid of you, Daemon. He could not trust you any more than I can trust you.
Bringing everything back together in a plea to penetrate him, to make him see this consistent error in his ways. Daemon then backtracks again in an attempted, coolly phrased deflection.
He was a fool who sought greatness but shrank from spilling blood to achieve it, and I see you will suffer the same fate.
Which is only an attempt for Daemon to try and justify that what he's responsible for, with blood and cheese, was okay. But Rhaenyra responds bluntly,
You struck down a child.
and all Daemon has left is somewhat acceptance, in a firm but desperate.
It was a mistake.
Rhaenyra ends with an understated and harsh,
You're pathetic.
and the following silence tells the rest of the story. Rhaenyra sits down and Daemon storms out of the room, out of the castle, ignoring his daughter, and takes off on Caraxes. What a powerful statement from the show about Rhaenyra's character and her conviction, and what a great portrayal by Emma Darcy. This scene single-handedly recontextualized everything I thought about the direction of Rhaenyra's character in all the best ways. No longer is she meek, there might be some Australian in her yet. There are several ways that this strong demeanor displayed by Rhaenyra throughout this episode, and most particularly in this scene, could have been undermined, even slightly, to humanize her more, or maybe even to appear to give her more depth through showing some internal conflict. She could have hesitated at any moment in the Daemon scene, but then overcome that hesitation to make the scene overall a less strong outing for her in order to have a more punchy, climactic payoff in the end. Or after Daemon stormed off and Rhaenyra gives Baelor her orders, there could have been a shot of Rhaenyra closing her eyes and putting her head down, second-guessing herself. That could have perhaps heightened the audience's understanding of what a big decision it was to tell Daemon off like that. Or later in the episode with Mysaria, instead of her saying that Daemon could be gone a week or a month or forever, she could have shown some sadness or regret, but instead she got gleeful a little bit, and was absolutely unflinching. And it's so fucking cool. Rhaenyra needed strength here, and I'm glad the showrunners and writers decided to omit any of these possibilities that could have potentially been good character-enriching, humanizing, sympathetic moments in the episode, in order to fully devote themselves to signify what I think was most needed in Rhaenyra's post-time skip character, after all the crying and mothering and the asking for things, and that was strength and confidence. She did not let Daemon gaslight, gatekeep, or let any of his girl-bossing one-liners divert her from her path. And that's truly admirable. I think every Rhaenyra scene in this episode stood out. In an episode with some tremendous scenes and performances from Aegon and Otto, Emma Darcy's Rhaenyra needed this scene, and this episode. and I'm glad she shattered my expectations. The meekness is gone. House of the Dragon is the best. If you want to keep up to date with my episode-by-episode thoughts on House of the Dragon, me and Alita Re do in-depth discussions after every episode on Secondary ENT. Support links in the description below. Thanks. Alita Re, my queen, was back again, and Rhaenys is fucking dead! Hurry up.
Oh my gosh. Who is your queen? Wait, you have too many? I don't know what you're talking
I do
about.
have too many, Alita Re. That's our funny reoccurring bit, but my even funnier reoccurring bit. Did you check my Twitter?
Oh, that queen. Yes, I did. I checked after the episode. I
That
saw you
queen,
tweeted
yes.
about young Rhaenyra appearing again.
Well,
being
you know, Alita
decapitated
Re,
this time crazy.
I never specified in my tweet, but you would be correct.